Good afternoon. Wow. See, if you find me louder than everybody else or I move too much, I have an excuse, I'm Italian. So, it's genetic, I cannot do anything about it. So, please be patient, okay? We will talk today about habits, which is strange. Some people say, well, why do you put together habits, which is usually routines? Something, people say habits are something monotonous and boring, and creativity. Well, because creativity and innovation today are two things that are very searched for by companies. I work with many companies that want their people to become more creative. We are in 21st century. In 21st century, tasks and activities and problems require creativity because they are very uncertain, they are very complex. We are not in a 20th century tailor world where everybody was looking for efficiency. In 21st century, we are looking at complexity and solving complexity. So every company wants to have more innovation and creativity. Unfortunately, creativity has some myths and legends that have to be dispelled because it's not always as we think. The creative person is seen as someone that has more creativity than others, or that has a talent that others don't have. And unfortunately, also in schools sometimes we think that some students have a talent and some other students don't. So when I go to companies, they tell me, I want this group to be more creative. I'll give you 2 days, make them creative. This is my job. My job is not to make people creative, is to make people understand I cannot do what they ask. So it's a very funny job. Why? Because as I put this picture, this is Twyla Therapy. She is one of the most important choreographers and dancers in the world. And she wrote a book about creativity, about being creative. She created some of the most important choreographers in the world. And she talks about creativity as a habit. It means as a routine. So she says creativity is not a spark of genius that you have to look for. If I translate what she says into my world, especially in the corporate world, creativity is not a department. When companies want to be more creative, they create the innovation department. And then they put people that are supposed to be more creative, and they wait for creativity to come out from the department. Then two things happen. In the history of great innovations in companies, usually those innovations come from other parts of the company, not the innovation department. Second, sometimes someone from the innovation department finds something very interesting, but then the habits of the company stifle that innovation, so it's stopped. No budget. I'm sorry, you cannot try it. So the innovation department is a very good start, but it's not the solution for being more creative. Creativity is not a talent, is not a spark, it's a habit, meaning that it is a mind habit that we can work on every day. So we don't look for the perfect moment, we don't look for the perfect department, and we don't look for the perfect student who has more talent than others. One thing that we have to train when we want to be more creative, or actually we wanted to create routines that make us more creative and innovative, is to switch from the short-term world we live in into a visionary world. Again, companies embrace this concept. They love visions. Every company has a vision. if you ask an employee of a company what is their vision, they don't know. It's the most important thing for creating innovation, they don't know. Why? Because it's an exercise. We create a vision, we put it on a nice board, and then we forget about it. We need to make money. Which is perfectly understandable, but you cannot be short-term, extrinsic, and then create. It's very difficult to do like this. Visionary, what does it mean? What is a vision? A vision is the view of a future that is possible, but which does not exist. So when you create something new, when you are innovative, you think about something that doesn't exist, and then you work towards that direction to create it. Our world is not very supportive of this habit, because we have urgencies, we have short-term goals, very short-term goals. In companies, the problem of short-termism is very high now. People work for the quarterly results, the 3-month results, which means that there is no room for a vision, for a long-term vision, and for an innovative vision that may take years. Because if we have to make the budget for the next 3 months, we don't have time to think about 5 years or 10 years. Not everybody is like this, of course, there are exceptions, but this is quite the rule in our world today. So one thing that is very interesting in education and in promoting creativity and innovation among other people is how do we deal with rewards? How do we make people more innovative? How do we, I wouldn't say push them, how do we make them want to be innovative, which means to risk, which means to fail, which means to be ridiculed sometimes, because I bring you something that is, I think is innovative, it might be innovative, and you say, what's this? Okay, who wants to do that? How can we reward it? How can we have innovation and creativity sparking from everybody? This is what happens when you are rewarded by our world today. In our world, there are mostly extrinsic motivators. Extrinsic motivators are motivators that come from outside. Money, prestige, a nice compliment, you were very good. Okay, so I do it because you tell me that I'm good. This is an extrinsic motivator. Science shows that extrinsic motivators work extremely well when there is no creativity involved. If there is creativity involved, extrinsic rewards stifle innovation. People are less creative. I guess you've done it sometimes. You want to go into a bookshop and you have a book in mind already. So you go into the bookshop and you go straight to that book. This one. This is my book, I want that one, I pay for it and I go home. This is a typical short-term goal, which is perfectly fine, okay? So when a short-term goal motivates us, our mind focuses just on the goal. No creativity, no alternatives. I have to reach my goal. I guess sometimes you did also the opposite. You go into a bookshop just because you want to go into a bookshop. You don't have a book in mind. What happens? The book is there, but maybe you don't want that one. So a world opens up. You start looking at books, and maybe you find a very nice book. Have you ever found a very nice book that you didn't know before in a bookshop? Yes, sometimes it happens. Most of the time, yes. This is a more creative approach in terms of the mind. There is no short-term goal. I don't have to reach a goal immediately. I just go into a bookshop and maybe I will find a book, maybe I won't. Which in real world terms means maybe I will succeed, maybe I will fail. Remember this word, because it's very important. Maybe I will succeed, maybe I will fail. We don't see it when we go into the bookshop because it's just pleasure for us. But sometimes we go into the bookshop and we don't find anything. So the problem is, how can we train the mind, so to train the person, train ourselves, to be creative, and how can we keep that motivation on for a long time, the necessary time to be creative, to create something. This is one of the experiments that showed the difference and the importance of extrinsic motivators and intrinsic motivators. It's called the candle problem. You probably have heard of it. The researchers that did this, Carl Dunker, in 1945, gave a group of people this task. You have to attach the candle onto the wall without making the wax dripping onto the floor. So some people tried to attack the thumbtacks into the wall, doesn't work. They try to burn the side of the candle, doesn't work. This is the answer. What is interesting is that when people was rewarded for finding the right solution, which requires to be creative because you don't have to see the box just as a box, but also as a platform for the candle. When the people got rewarded for that, in our world, the world of extrinsic rewards, everybody would say, well, if you pay someone to be creative, they will be creative faster. This is what we think, right? So if I pay you to be more creative, you will solve this problem faster than others that are not paid. What happened? You can guess. The opposite. And in 20 years of experiments, of psychological experiments, the same happened over and over again. People that were asked to do something creative, to solve a creative or complex problem, did very well when they were not rewarded with an extrinsic reward. When they were paid, they did less well. In a mechanic exercise, when there is no creativity involved, of course, people that got paid were much more incentivized to finish early. And the mind did exactly what it had to do. Focus, don't focus on alternatives, focus on the job that has to be done, and people that got paid did it much faster than people that did it just for the pleasure of it. Something that is interesting in another experiment with a puzzle is that people that got paid to make a puzzle, the payment for the puzzle took away the pleasure of creativity. What the experimenters did was this. They gave a puzzle to two groups. In one group, they told the people, I will give you $10 for this. After 10 minutes, they stopped the experiment with an excuse. But they left the people in the room, in both groups. In one group, they were paid. In the other group, they were not paid. They were just there for the pleasure of it. What happened was that the people that were not paid, they had to wait in the room with a puzzle in front of them, were so interested that they went on experimenting. The other people that were paid had another idea. That puzzle was a job, because they were paid for it. So when the experimenters told them to stop, they stopped and they didn't go on. They didn't want to experiment anymore because it was a job. So it's very interesting to see how we are not using, how much we want creativity, innovation. And creativity and innovation is not just for companies. I understand that we can use it also in education, we can use it in personal life. Why? Because our challenges today, they're not efficiency-linked challenges. They are complexity-based challenges. They are uncertainty-based challenges. So we need to have more creativity, meaning a habit of looking at alternatives and keep working until you find a solution. I take this word from the corporate world, but we can use it for everything. KPI is what we usually call the key performance indicator, which is an indicator of how you're doing. So, if you are in a degree, the KPIs could be the marks for your exams. We measure your marks and see how well you're doing in your graduation. KPIs are very, very dangerous, and in companies they've seen it, because they are subtle drivers of behavior, and they are based on the simple pain and pleasure principle. So if you give me an indicator and you reward me based on that indicator, expect all the possible behavior stemming from that indicator. An example that you probably have seen firsthand. I don't think that call centers are like that just in Italy. In the call center world, one of the most used indicators for a call center operator is how fast they go. So how many calls they make per day. This is a very good indicator from an efficiency point of view. But it also drives other unwanted behaviors. And I'm sure you've experienced them as a user. If you keep the operator with that indicator on the phone for too long, what happens? They hang up. Even when you call them to solve a problem. But if you're like, oh, I don't understand, please explain me again, they hang up. Why? Because they're not rewarded based on helping you, they're rewarded based on time. So, if you make me waste time, I will not help you, I'll hang up. You know, that they're like, oh, I cannot hear anymore, I'm sorry, I cannot hear, and they hang up. Something like that. This is the power of indicators and the power of rewards. You probably also heard of Google that made the 20% rule. They gave people 20% of their time paid to create whatever they wanted. This is a philosophy. Creation and innovation is important. So do whatever you want, and some of the best products from Google come from this rule. So how can we reward innovation and escape the problem of extrinsic motivators? We have to pay someone if she has to do a good job, yes, but what about students, for example? What about children? If you have a child, you know what happens if you pay him or her to clean his room. What happens next time? They will look at you and say, where's my money? And if you say there's no money, will they clean their room? No. Difficult. Another approach would be to reward purpose, autonomy, and learning, especially purpose. Very difficult in a child, of course, but much more rewarding. So how can we do it? Extrinsic motivators will be there all the time. We will always be graded, we will always be paid, hopefully. Hopefully we'll be paid. We will always want to have a compliment from someone. We love compliments. But we have to learn how to work with intrinsic motivators, which means motivators that come from behind, from inside us. And intrinsic motivators are very tricky because they don't give you an immediate reward. Nobody pays you, nobody says you're smart or good. And maybe it will take a long time before you get that reward. Here I put some coaching questions. In coaching we use questioning to use the other person's resources to find new alternatives. It's a very creative process based only on listening and questions, no judging. This is a novelty. So look at these questions. What motivates you deeply? What would you do if nobody gave you anything for it? Think about your life. Think about the things you do, or think about other people. You've probably seen people that work on something at 4 o'clock in the morning. They get up and work on something without being paid, without being rewarded, without being their job even. But it's very interesting for them. It's very intrinsically motivating. So they go on. So, together with the extrinsic motivators, if you want to motivate someone to be more creative, start by analyzing with them what's really important for them. What could they learn from that example, from that exercise? Imagine a student, for example. Students work for marks. Yes, that's very good. If I work only for a mark, I will also take shortcuts. Meaning that if I know that a professor does not ask me chapter 12, I will not study it. It's normal. I have to be very efficient. If students think about the importance of the gradation, if they create a vision of what they want to do in their lives, so for example, after graduation, I want to be a lawyer that defends the rights of people in third world countries, I don't know, or just I want to be a very good lawyer that gives justice to all people that deserve it. Probably with that vision and with that motivation, the student will study even the chapter that doesn't apply to that exam, or will go to conferences like this one that are not part of the curriculum. Because the motivation is intrinsic, not extrinsic. There is no expectation. With extrinsic motivators, there is an expectation. You have to tell me something, or you have to give me something. With intrinsic motivation, there is no expectation from the world. It works much more. But then we have to have goals, so that's a problem. We have to have exams, we have to pass exams. So how do we reward a person to be creative? But then how do we make that person get a result? If you think about the word creativity, there is also the create part, the doing part. Philosophically, we're all creative. Today we could think about 50, 100 new apps that we could sell on iTunes or wherever that are very innovative. We can be very creative. But until we do something about it, that creativity is theoretical. We think about an app and we think, yes, that could be creative, but then we have to work for it. So the problem is, how can we put together two things that go in opposite directions? Result, so short-term goals are important, but also creativity. There is a little game to be played here. We have to reward the look for alternatives. In a discovery phase, we have to reward learning. And now we will see how to do it with language, with the language strategies. In the second part, we focus on goals, so we reward the result. I will reward you if we get that result. But if I reward you only on the result, I will focus on the result, so I will be less creative. We talked about vision. So what is a vision and how can we reward it and how can we put it together with our results? A vision is simply a vivid description of a potential future. It is not a goal. A creative endeavor does not start with a goal. It starts with a vision, and then you attach goals to that vision. But it starts with something that doesn't exist. I want to make a new educational program online, so that I think that people all over the world can have access to more education. This is a vision. It's not a goal. I didn't talk about numbers. I didn't talk about how I will get paid. I didn't talk about strategies or business models. I talked about a vision. This is what I see for the future. Vision is just a direction. And that's why nobody uses it. And that's why companies put it on a board in a room and then forget about it. Because we are focused on efficiency and on goals, which is understandable. But creativity starts with imagination, not with money. Creativity starts with thinking about new possibilities, not with thinking about short-term goals. How will I make it for the next month? How will I finish the exam? Visions have to be attached to resilience. I don't know if you've ever heard resilience when we talk about creativity. As we said before, creativity means doing something, not just thinking about something. And creativity has a big problem, as we said before. It's very risky. Innovation is very risky. Because if I use my precious time to imagine new possibilities instead of doing my job, well, how can I know that I don't waste time? How can I know that you will not criticize me? Because I love compliments, and even though everybody says that we like also criticism if it's constructive, it's not true. Usually it's not true. Even if we then learn from criticism, we don't like being criticized. It's a little bit painful. So how do we apply this to creativity? How do we make a person or a student think about their vision, build their vision, and then spend time and efforts to go towards that vision, which is an unpaved road. Nobody will tell you how to go to that vision because it's innovative. Everybody will tell you how to pass the exam, though. It's a very well-known road. So the temptation is very strong. One thing that we need to learn when we talk about rewarding creativity is training people to fail, which doesn't mean to make them fail, which means giving them the opportunity to fail safely. It was funny. The funniest, as you can see, the funniest stories usually come from companies that usually are very apply these things very dearly, and they want to learn about these things, but then the application falls a bit short of their expectations. So in one company, in a logistics company, they called us and there was a problem. They said, the guys at the beginning of the line made little mistakes or saw that some very small mistakes were made on the labels, for example. They didn't tell anybody about those mistakes because they were very small. At the other side of the line, mistakes became very big, and the company was losing millions because a small mistake became the big mistake, the very big mistake. So they told us, the management told us, we have to teach them how to do it, we have to teach them, they probably read some books about failure and how to, encourage failure, etc. So they said, they have to just tell that there is a mistake, it's not a problem. When we talked to the workers, guess what they told us? If I tell them that I saw a mistake, or I made a mistake, a small mistake, I get punished. And in line with the pain-pleasure principle, if I get punished because I tell you that there's a mistake, what will I do the next time? I'm sorry, I will not tell you. It's perfectly normal human behavior. So, to the surprise of management, we told them, everything is fine with the workers. Let's talk about you. They were like, what? Yes, let's talk about you. If you don't create an environment in which the person can fail safely, they will never try anything new, because they get punished. And the world punishes you enough if you make mistakes. You don't get the compliments you want. You don't get the money you want. You don't get the recognition you want. And maybe you don't get it for years. So creativity is very hard. It takes resilience. Creating an environment in which risk is rewarded. What does it mean? Remember the key performance indicators before. If you reward the actual mistake, what happens? I will make more mistakes if I get rewarded for it. So you cannot reward a mistake, but you have to make the environments so that the person tells, okay, I made a mistake, or actually want to innovate, and knowing that they will waste 10,000 euros of your money and nothing will happen. You will not get rewarded for it, but nothing will happen. What about the linguistic strategies that we can use when we are trying to reward a person to be more creative? Well, imagine that a person wanted to create something new, wanted to solve a problem in a different way, and he or she failed miserably. Think about your experience. What happened when other people found out about the mistake and maybe got to lose because of that mistake? What happened? Sometimes you got a very good, well, very good is not a very nice definition, but people that wanted to reward this kind of a behavior, and they said, okay, it's a great job, it's a nice try, I appreciate what you did. Okay, you failed, but that's part of the process. They probably asked you, what did you learn about it? Imagine asking a person that has to tell you, I failed. Imagine the emotional distress of a person that failed. And instead of a scolding, she gets a question. What did you learn about it? How about creating an environment in which creativity is rewarded because risk is rewarded? What will you do differently next time? You don't want the person to fail also next time, so you make them think, okay, you did this, what worked? What didn't work? We focus on the process, we focus on the behavior, we don't focus on the person. We don't say, you made a mistake. Ay, 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 we say in Italy. Ay, ay, ay. Okay. Yes. What do you have to change? Okay, think about it. Think about the process. There are some things you did that were okay. Some other things were not okay. So you change only that part, not everything. The person focuses on the behavior, doesn't focus on, oh my God, I failed. On judgments, yes, exactly. Why did they talk about resilience? Because of this, because of risk, because creativity takes hard work, it takes risks. Resilience comes from risalio, from Latin. Risalio means to get back on something. It was used to describe people that when the boat toppled over in a storm, had the strength to get back on the boat and get saved. So resilience is the ability to face adverse events, also emotionally, and go through them without much distress. This is resilience. It's not resistance. This is different. Resilience is, okay, I have an adverse event. Emotionally, I feel quite fine, and I find a solution to go on. And we have to be very resilient to be creative, because we have to go outside our comfort zone, which we love. The comfort zone is the most comfortable sofa you've ever had, with all the luxuries, drinks, TV, everything. The comfort zone is the perfect sofa. So even if you don't like the environment, you don't want to leave the sofa. The comfort zone is too nice. Even if we suffer in the comfort zone, it's too nice. So, and the comfort zone is where the extrinsic motivators are. I get the best mark on the exam, I get rewarded. And I know perfectly how to get the best mark in an exam. I've done it a million times. So I feel fine. If I have to experiment something new, I have to get out of the sofa. That's very difficult. So we have to push this a little bit. Training people to be more resilient and therefore more creative means to keep a steady mind, a steady heart, actually, and a flexible mind. What does it mean? We are trained to follow goals. We are trained all our lives, even in school. We are trained to measure goals. Okay, so you know exactly how to prepare an exam. I have to study 20 pages a day per 30 days. I cannot drink too much. I will pass my exam. Perfectly clear. That's okay. We are teaching students how to reach goals. That's perfect. This part is very important for teaching them to risk, to find new alternatives, because creativity is like finding new alternatives to new problems or problems that couldn't be solved until now. So again, using coaching questions could be a very nice try. We know these questions already, the questions for the goals. What is your goal? How will you know you have reached it? Okay, it has to be specific. How will others know? What are the obstacles and what are the resources? These are questions that are perfectly nice, they're perfectly fine for building a nice, specific, motivating goal. These questions are the questions for when you fail, are the questions for when you have to leave your sofa. They are the questions for solving new problems when the old strategies that we had don't work anymore. So we keep going on with the same strategies, doesn't work. Frustrating. But we keep going on. Why? Because we fall in love with the strategies. We fall in love with our strategies. A creative person dares to find new strategies. Strategies are how we do things. We have strategies for breakfast. We have strategies for going to work. We have strategies for avoiding work. We avoid the strategies for everything. Once a strategy is built, it becomes a habit. So you get out of the car, you walk 200 meters, then we stop and you say, did I lock the car? There is a dialogue there starting. Did I lock the car? Yes, I did. I always do. I left the bag inside though. Should I go back? At the end, you go back, and of course you lock the car. But the behavior was automatic, so you don't think about it anymore. Strategies have to change, though. New problems in a complex world such as this one, the strategies of yesterday don't work anymore. But we fall in love with strategies. So these are some questions that could help us find new strategies, find new alternatives. I could help a person see that that strategy is okay until it works. It's not the only strategy in the world. What are the alternatives? It's a powerful question, very simple but very powerful. The person who goes to you and says frustrated, I don't know what to do. I've tried everything. Okay, what are the alternatives? What haven't you tried? What can you try instead? What is the single thing that you haven't done that will help you progress? What is one thing that will help you progress? Who can help you? Sometimes we want to do everything alone. We are the heroes of our stories. Everything we do it alone. We can ask. Other people have other strategies, maybe more creative. Okay, you got stuck. What is the first action you got now? Imagine a dialogue with a person, with a student, a manager, an employee, everybody, where the person tells you, I'm frustrated, my strategy of life doesn't work anymore. It doesn't work. It's pretty, it's very hard because it's a strategy that we have used all our lives. Our grandfathers, grandfathers used it, and now it doesn't work anymore. So it's very emotionally charging. It's very difficult. And the person tells you, okay, you got stuck, fine. What is the first action you need to do now? The focus is not anymore on the frustrating strategy. It's on the, okay, what's the alternative? What's the first action to create something new? Create a new strategy to solve a complex problem that you have. What can you learn from this mistake? We have already seen it. These are some questions that can help the person get out of the frustrating routine where nothing is created because we don't look outside our comfort zone, which is usually a problem. And it's not a problem of being talented, of being creative. It's a problem of being afraid of getting outside the comfort zone on one hand, and the other of not knowing what's outside. Because when we have our 10 strategies in our lives, those are for us the reality. If you travel and you see other people, other places, other populations, you find it very strange that they do some things in very different ways. And most of the time we say, oh, no, that's wrong. That's all right. This is not it's supposed to be. Because these are different strategies. Another thing, this is a work from Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, that a psychologist that worked on motivation. This is another way of rewarding and pushing creativity. As I said before, with the experiment with the puzzle, creativity needs an environment where risk is rewarded. Well, not rewarded, but is accepted. An environment in which there are intrinsic motivators, not only extrinsic. And also a pleasant environment. There must be a pleasant goal involved so that I can do it even though I risk to fail. And a very good strategy, if you want to make the department of the innovation department of the company or someone else to be more creative is to design tasks that are a balance between challenge on one hand and skill on the other. If the challenge is too little, we get bored. We do it, it's too, and sometimes we don't do it very well. When usually we are late, when the venue where we have to go, it's very close to where we live, right? It's only 5 minutes, and then we get 5 minutes late there. Because why? Because it was too easy. So we're just like, okay, it will be easy. On one hand, on the other hand, skills. If a person doesn't have the right skills, she will panic. So she will just like, okay, I have to finish this and put it behind my back. So a very nice way to promote creativity is to create flow. The state of flow is a state in which the person has the right skills, the right challenge, and finds pleasure in what she does. One flow example that everybody has is when we read. When we read, skills, if the book is not too difficult, skills are matching the challenge, so we forget about time. Another interesting study that we applied also in coaching very much was a study made by Professor Carl Dweck in the US that studied the minds of students and how they approach problems at school. And she found two types of mindsets, a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. In a growth mindset, the person focuses on learning. I can learn anything I want. So it doesn't matter if now I don't have the competencies, I will learn. It doesn't matter if I'm frustrated. It means that I have to create something new in order to solve the problem. I have to try hard, and if I try hard, I succeed. In a fixed mindset, instead, the person believes that the skills she has are the skills she will have all her life. So, I cannot learn anything new. If I cannot learn anything new, it means that I will not challenge myself, because I cannot. If it means that if I cannot learn anything new and I will not try hard, it means that I need you to tell me that I'm smart. Because you cannot tell me, try harder, because I will not do it, because I think that I will not make it. What was interesting is that they analyzed the CT scans for the brains of people with a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. And they saw that different parts of the brain lit up depending on the person. In this case, the people that wanted to risk, they thought that if they persevered, that they could create something new, they could solve the problem. When they had a problem in front of them, when the people talked about complexity, etc., in the mind, the areas of learning lit up. The person wanted to learn. On the other side, nothing lit up.